Oh.
The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
We're doing it, okay? On today's episode, we're talking about DeBrusk versus Elias Lindholm, because they're kind of connected, okay? And if you're picking Elias Lindholm, you're just a son of a... You get what I'm saying?
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks writer with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we get into this episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because you know why? It is your Canucks every damn day. Part of that Locked On Podcast Network. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe, follow us for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Go download that GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Jake DeBrusk, Elias Lindholm. You know, both of these guys, again, a weird free agency with the Bruins and Canucks basically swapping players. I think you said on yesterday's episode, too, the Canucks are kind of looking like Boston West. I'm not sure how Canuck fans feel about that. Maybe let us know in the comments wherever you interact with us. But what we want to do in today's episode is get into DeBrusk versus Lindholm, grading the fits with their new teams, and seeing, which player is going to have more success with their franchise, and try to keep it unbiased here, okay? The other thing we want to do in today's episode is get into the opinion of Jake DeBrusk among Boston Bruins fans, because I was digging into this a bit this week, doing some work for Daily Hive, and man, oh man, Bruins fans seem incredibly split on Jake DeBrusk, so we'll get into some of their comments and feedback on that as well. Before we do all of that, let me introduce my co-host. I can't believe he hasn't even slept yet. He was DJing all night long. Kyle Ballard, aka DJ Ballard. What's going on, buddy?
Didn't get home till 2 a.m. Was playing the tunes for the people. Well, like 4 people. But hey, the people are the people, man. For real. Practice makes perfect. Shout out to B-Side Radio. Shout out to the Beaumont Art Studios, right? And Mount Pleasant, really looking after that West Coast. The Don't Dose Art Lab also looks after the West Coast. And also Locked On, man. The podcast network does that as well, okay? We get to do this, and that's give you your Canucks every day. We get to assume, we get to debate, and I'm pretty excited about today's episode, okay? Because it's a real one. Beggsy, it's a real one. Let's be honest. We're going to miss Elias Lindholm. We are. The best version of him, I think we saw him for about a month when the games really mattered. And according to the Edmonton Oilers, they're really happy, right, to see that guy go, because he was annoying to play against. Which is kind of a surprising thing to hear, because he doesn't strike you as an annoying guy. But when you're that strong and you're that all over the place and you have some skill, you could be, again, very annoying to play against. So we are missing something. But man, oh man, the Bruins are missing something too. I'm curious to talk about this, because there is a bit of a parallel here, right? DeBrusk versus Lindholm. You're talking about us losing a top 6 forward, us gaining one in DeBrusk, losing one in Lindholm. They're such different players. I wonder who's gonna be missing a tool more, right? Is Boston gonna be missing DeBrusk more, or are the Canucks gonna be missing Lindholm more? Because I know for the most part, Lindholm did struggle with his time with the Canucks, but again, recency bias, he was warming up, really warming up when Pettersson wasn't doing anything for your Vancouver Canucks. So Beggsy, I guess you can start wherever you want to go. This is going to be a bit of an episode that's all over the place, more DeBrusk talk, but I feel as if we can't really move forward without talking about the loss of Lindholm just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Elias Lindholm, certainly the playoff version of Elias Lindholm is a loss for the Boston Bruins, right? I mean, there's, for the Vancouver Canucks, I should say. And I think there's no doubt about that. He was one of the 5 best Canucks in the playoffs. But ironically, both of these players were so good for both of their teams in the playoffs, right? We talked about it before. Jake DeBrusk led the Boston Bruins in points in the 2024 postseason with 11 points in 13 games. I mean, since he entered the league, Jake DeBrusk is 16th overall in playoff goals scored. I believe he has 27 playoff goals in 86 games or something like that. He had a big, as a rookie, he had a 2-goal game in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, Jake DeBrusk has shown time and time again that he shows up in big moments. But Elias Lindholm, again, did the same thing for your Vancouver Canucks as well. So, I mean, kind of answer your question in terms of who's going to miss which player more. I'm going to say that it'll probably be the Canucks that miss Lindholm more. And here's why I'm going to say that.
Whoa.
I think Lindholm brings more to the table just in terms of both his scoring profile and his penalty killing and faceoff prowess. And that's something that the Canucks, they really relied on Lindholm in the playoffs to win draws, win defensive zone faceoffs, right shot center, really good on the penalty kill. And again, was all over the place in the postseason, both with, being physical, which we didn't see a lick of that in the regular season, but he was physical in the playoffs. And that's knock on DeBrusk, to be honest. I just think Lindholm has a more well-rounded game, and part of it's just the bias that he plays center. But, when you look at Jake DeBrusk, I mean, this is a guy that's also added penalty killing to his repertoire. This is also a guy who's really improved his defensive game of late as well. And when I look at the two contracts, I like the DeBrusk contract more than the Lindholm contract. Now, that's not saying much. I think I'm still tentative about going 7 years on this guy. I'm tentative about $5.5 million per season, although the AAV is not too bad. But when I look at Lindholm making almost $8 million in Boston, and Kyle, what did we say a few weeks ago, right? Lindholm was probably going to sign a contract. I think I threw out the number 7.8, right? And this guy signed for 7.75 with the Boston
Okay,
Bruins.
buddy. Stroke yourself some more, buddy. It's early in the morning, buddy. Stroke yourself more, okay? phub.com over here. Anyways, it's again, I wonder how the organization really feels about this, okay? For real, because you got to remember that the Canucks, they offered Lindholm supposedly a 7-year deal worth $7 million per, right? But here they are saying that DeBrusk was their number one target in the offseason or in free agency, right? And another thing to think about is this as well. Like, why would Lindholm even come close to signing that deal after, again, it's $700,000 less than what he could have got in the market, or $1 million less of what he could have got in the market? And also, why would he sign with the team that almost traded him after 2 months of playing with the Canucks? Do you guys remember that? He almost got traded to Boston. So there is a lot of fascination around the relationship between, again, Lindholm and the Canucks, the trade, the assets. Like, this is going to drag on for a bit, and I think it is going to go down to a DeBrusk versus Lindholm thing. Now, one thing that DeBrusk can do that can sway the opinion or the favoritism to his side is wake up Elias Pettersson, and that's something that Elias Lindholm couldn't do. I brought this up, and I was partially joking, but the more and more I think about it, I'm down for it to happen, okay? Jake DeBrusk, I learned this over the last couple of days, reading some business book called the Pumpkin Plan, okay? The dude is talking about how you got to be a little angry. You got to be a little angry to succeed. You got to be a little mad at yourself, okay? Let's say, and again, this is the knock on Jake DeBrusk, according to some Boston fans, he's not always playing angry. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy, but he doesn't bring that game in and game out. You kind of have to wait till April to get that, which isn't the worst thing, okay? But let's say he's like that for the whole season. There is a chance for, again, not only for this guy to wake up Elias Pettersson and be his catalyst, but be his Todd Bertuzzi, okay? Again, Elias Pettersson, Mark Todd Bertuzzi. I can see the comparables, man. Again, that's something crazy to say, but what if Jake DeBrusk picks up 37 goals, I don't know, 45 assists, 82 points? Like, there could be like a power forward / cerebral Swedish player connection there with Jake DeBrusk and Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, I mean, I love that notion that you're saying. And, one thing I will, when I'm looking at the stats between these two players, one thing I will bring up is that one area where Jake DeBrusk is very different from Lindholm and far superior is with rush chances. Jake DeBrusk actually gets quite a few rush chances. Lindholm is near the bottom of the league in terms of rush chances created. And, Jake DeBrusk, we talked about before, isn't necessarily the fastest guy in the world, but the guy does love to skate down the wing and score some big goals. And, go watch his highlights from, again, this is a rookie season, but Game 7 when he scored the game-winning goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs to knock him out of the dance.
Coast to
His
coast.
goal was a rush goal. He skated right down the wing. He flew by Jake Gardner. He deked on. Oh, my God. I can't remember who was in net at the time.
Trevor, here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. You keep saying that this guy's not the fastest guy in the world, and he's like, I don't even know what you said yesterday because I kind of ignored it. It was like, oh, this guy's in the bottom percentile when it comes to speed or all that BS, right? Watch this guy play. I don't know how they track his bursts or, the ability for him to go when he chooses to go. Maybe he's not the fastest throughout the whole game or all that jazz, but I feel as if this guy has a similar speed burst to a guy like Bo Horvat. You know how like Horvat could just go from a stop to a go really quick for a big guy, and it kind of surprised us. I'm telling you, Jake DeBrusk has that ability too. So with that being said, there's that instinctiveness, there's that offensive ability, there's that striking ability that Pettersson needs on his wing. And I want to get back to this question before we go off of it, because I feel as if we're going to talk about it in the second half. But like, why don't you think Lindholm works with Pettersson? Because that's what it really came down to. At the end of the day, the Vancouver Canucks need to put their money into a place where they could see Pettersson finding chemistry with the winger. And it's surprising to see the Canucks offering Lindholm $7 million, even though those two could not get it together. Now, they probably did that because, again, he was just incredible in the playoffs. But, like, why don't you think Lindholm and Pettersson worked?
I mean, in fairness, I think they did work to an extent, but they just didn't get along roped together because Tocchet really wanted to go with, those three centers down the middle. But the reason was, it was a flawed fit is because I think both guys are primarily playmakers, right? I mean, Lindholm does an okay job of getting into the scoring areas. But in general, I feel like they just both like to, make plays too much, right? I know Pettersson can shoot the puck, but he's primarily a playmaker. Lindholm's primarily a playmaker too. But again, when I look at these two guys, and I said the Canucks might miss Lindholm more because of his more well-rounded game, but I like the DeBrusk contract more than the Lindholm contract. And also in terms of grading the fit, I also like the DeBrusk fit better in Vancouver than I do with Lindholm in Boston. And the reason for that is just because I don't think, Lindholm is their de facto number one center there. Maybe he's competing with Charlie Coyle or Pavel Zacha. I mean, I just don't know if Lindholm's going to live up to being a number one center in Boston, which is kind of what he is right now. He's the de facto guy there, especially now that he's making that kind of money. Whereas DeBrusk in Vancouver, again, he's going to play with Pettersson, or he's going to play with Miller. He's going to play with good players who are going to elevate him. And you could argue that Pasta and Pasternak's going to elevate Lindholm. But again, I think there's definitely more risk in terms of the fit with Lindholm in Boston, despite the fact that they needed a number one center. Lots to like about Jake DeBrusk, but apparently a lot of Bruins fans don't like Jake DeBrusk. Let's get into that on the other side. Before we do that, let's shout out our friends over at GameTime. All right, you know the deal. There's MLB games going on right now, and you could go down to Seattle or you could go down to San Fran if you're down here on the West Coast, the best coast. And if you do so, guess what? GameTime, they are an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And guess what? Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And speaking of killer deals at the last minute, man, oh man, my girl, she's going to a concert tonight. Kyle, it's your two favorite artists, Missy Elliott and Ciara, okay?
Oh,
going to live it up.
Okay.
So there we go.
I think they have a song together, right? Goodies? This my goodies. My goodies. Dun, dun, dun. My goodies. Dun, dun, dun. Do you know what goodies are? Titties.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. Hey, if you're into the titties, I mean the goodies, getting tickets cheap, make sure you go to GameTime, all right? And hey, if you want those killer deals at the last minute, you could also find that on GameTime. So go download that GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. I know we got tons of Missy Elliott and Ciara fans here at Locked On Canucks. Go get those tickets. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks on this Thursday morning, man. Holy, it's already Thursday, man. The Canada Day long weekend a couple days ago just accelerated everything. I'm feeling out of sorts. Unreal. That being said, I'm excited about tomorrow. It's Friday. We about to do our thing. Hey, I'm not going to be seeing any goodies. That's not going to happen tomorrow. But things happen, man. Things happen. It is what it is. What I will be doing, though, late at night when I'm in my bed and on my phone watching videos is watching more Jake DeBrusk film, okay? I'm falling in love with the potential, okay? That's what we like to do here on the West Coast, the best coast of Canada, okay? Before we completely, though, get off of Lindholm, I do want to bring up this point, okay? So, like, there's this notion that, again, the Vancouver Canucks got more physical with Jake DeBrusk, right? A big dude, a big winger, father's Louis DeBrusk, all this jazz. Good old Albertan boy, Jake DeBrusk. You know, we got more physical. Let's not ignore how physical Lindholm was in the playoffs, because there's different ways of physicality, right? You can lay the body, and Lindholm did that a couple times. Look at Game 3. Look at the first shift of the game. This guy was bringing the boom, straight boom. It's just the truth. But at the same time, I think Lindholm's physicality was showcased more consistently in his ability to just be strong throughout the whole series, aka annoying. Frank Saravelli talking about how the Oilers are so happy that Lindholm is out of the division. So again, we are definitely going to be missing some parts of the best of Lindholm, and we barely got it, and it was looking nice when we had it, and because of that, we're going to be missing it. That being said, I'm moving on. Jake DeBrusk and Teddy Bluger. Teddy Bluger's way better than Elias Lindholm anyways. Talk about Jake DeBrusk. Are the Boston Bruins fans missing this guy? And if they are, why?
Yeah, honestly, I fell down a little rabbit hole on Reddit just doing an article for Daily Hive about Jake DeBrusk, and I was kind of surprised about how split Bruins are on Jake DeBrusk. So I want to get into a few of these comments here just to give some insight into what the people in Boston are saying about Jake DeBrusk. So we have some people along the lines of saying, we have to re-sign Jake DeBrusk. We already let so much young talent go. DeBrusk is adjusting to his new line mates in Boston. He knows the system. He's a two-way player who scores 20 goals a year. I'm surprised he isn't signed yet. And then other people are saying, wow, Jake still has fans here. That's mind-boggling. And other people going, it's mind-boggling that Jake, doesn't have fans here. And, a lot of people are saying, don't want to re-sign him, flat out not interested. Don't care if he's done a few things well. He's wildly inconsistent and is going to be an overpay. And that one kind of hit me because that was my initial thought when I first saw the signing. That was my initial thought when we were going through our free agency list, is that this is a player who is way too inconsistent, who's going to command too much money on the open market. And I don't know if I'm trying to talk myself into the signing a bit more. I definitely like the underlying profile of Jake DeBrusk, the fact that he's showing up in the playoffs. But Kyle, am I just trying to talk myself into the signing too much, or there's some red flags that we're kind of ignoring when we talk about the good in Jake DeBrusk?
No, you're trying to talk. You're trying to talk more sense or talk more delusion into your Canucks life. Okay, by again, Trevor Beggs late at night. He leaves his wife's wife at 11 o'clock at night, right, to go to the washroom, but he brings his phone with him. Why? Who knows? But he gets on the toilet and he has his headphones on, and his wife is concerned, but don't be concerned because all this guy is doing is watching Jake DeBrusk highlights, okay? It's the truth. We got to do it. Look what I just did. I compared this guy to Todd Bertuzzi, man. We have to do it. We have to talk ourselves up on it because going into this offseason, it was Operation Save Pettersson. What? How do you save a guy making $11.6 million? Hey, just trying to make his life easier as a hockey player 5-on-5. So it went from Gensel to DeBrusk, and that's a shock. That is. So now we have to do the homework and gas ourselves up. And, all those things that the Boston Bruins fans are saying, and they're partially true. I mean, he gets, another thing is too, like, he's inconsistent. He also gets injured a lot too. Like, we got to start talking about that. I'm not going to say this guy's made out of glass. I'm just saying he's a bigger dude. He brings on physicality. He gets hurt a lot. He's got to find a way to get healthy and stay healthy and then be more consistent. On that note, I still want to dive deep into this, but I'm still waiting for the Rick Tocchet quote. I want to know what this guy thinks of Jake DeBrusk, because Rick Tocchet, just like Adam Foote, these guys are hockey nerds. Hockey nerds. A big reason why they signed Vincent Desharnais is because they're hockey nerds. They see a project, they want to ace it. They still believe Jake DeBrusk is a project, and one of the things they got to fix up here and ace on this project is turning DeBrusk into a more consistent player, because all those comments that you just read, ooze that. The frustrations that come with following a player that has all the tools, all the assets, all the potentiality, right? Who happens to probably be playing with guys like Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron and David Pasternak or David Krejci. Like, it's so frustrating watching a winger like that who is either really good or, again, as Pete Blackburn said, really invisible. And I'm sorry, we want to get Pettersson going. Dude, we can't have this guy be invisible for 40% of the regular season because, again, we need Pettersson to be feeling himself. And he can't be doing that with ghosts.
Yeah, and again, I think Patrick Allvin said as much, that he expects DeBrusk to play with Pettersson, but I do trust his coaching staff to say that if it's not working or if it doesn't work, they're going to move off of that. And I wouldn't be surprised at some point, again, with DeBrusk and the inconsistency he's shown through his NHL career, if they move off of that at some point, because it's hard to envision DeBrusk just, humming along like Brock Besser did this season, for instance. Brock Besser had a little bit of a slow stretch kind of around after the All-Star break, like many Canucks, but for the most part, he was really consistent this season. I did want to bring up one other comment from a Bruins fan here. And this one's kind of ending on the positive note, but this guy was saying a lot of Bruins fans misunderstand Jake DeBrusk's game. He's on a point-per-game player, and it's absurd to have that expectation. But what he is an outstanding defensive winger that contributes about 50 points a year. Fans have grown frustrated with his inconsistency, and that overshadows how good his defensive game has developed. He's been on the ice for the fewest 5-on-5 goals against of any player dating back to the start of last season. By almost every single advanced model, he is one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL. He kind of goes on to say the offensive inconsistency can be maddening, but again, he makes up for it with his defensive performance. And aside from the elite players in the NHL, most wingers go through stretches of inconsistency. And I thought that was actually a really eloquent way, and it made me feel better in terms of Jake DeBrusk's game. And I think that kind of lines up with what you're seeing all over the place, right? You look at this guy's advanced metrics, and I want to say that they do drop off in the playoffs a bit. They're not quite as stellar as they're in the regular season, but the playoffs is also a tougher atmosphere as well. And again, when I look at his defensive metrics maybe dropping off a bit in the playoffs, he was scoring, right? So he was making up for that in other ways. So I think that's a good kind of Cole's notes to wrap up what we're getting in Jake DeBrusk. Again, a lot of Boston fans are very split on him. You read the comments, and I think it's pretty much 50-50 on Reddit in terms of guys who love DeBrusk and guys who don't like DeBrusk. But we'll see how Canuck fans feel. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up being pretty split on DeBrusk.
Okay. Well, okay, and that may happen because I'm sorry. Being a consistent two-way 50-point player is not going to cut it. Because if that's the case, we're talking about peak Ilya Mikheyev. For this contract to be worth it, again, we could have just stashed the money and saved it. The Canucks are still early in their trajectory. Like, next offseason's a pretty big, there's a pretty sexy free agent list on the other side of that. Hey, weaponizing cap space. I feel as if you could weaponize your cap space and get good two-way players who could put up 50 points. I'm sorry. So there has to be more here. He can't just be that Cole's notes, nice ass comment that Trevor Beggs just read. 50-point guy, he's really good defensively, and dude, get up to 70 points, get up to 80 points. You're playing with Elias Pettersson. You need to feed off this guy. Like, there has to be chemistry. This has to be a home run. Does it not? Am I tripping?
I think it's got to be at least on par with $5.5 million value. And I don't think that's a 70, 80-point guy. I do think it's, around a 30-goal, 60-point guy, though, right? So maybe it's, are you grasping that straw saying 50 versus 60 points? I'm not quite sure. But if you get a 30-goal, 60-point guy who's really good defensively, and then the Canucks are getting more than their money's worth for 5.5, or at least pretty close to their money's worth. So I think that is the expectation. That's the bar for Jake DeBrusk. And again, bringing it during playoff time. Like, if the guy has an inconsistent regular season, but just absolutely tears up in the playoffs, I don't think fans are going to really care too much about the contract as much.
Yeah. So again, we don't know who Patterson's going to play with. We're just assuming it's DeBrusk, blah, blah, blah. Now we're connecting these two together forever, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So again, I'm just going to bring up the point again. We need Pettersson going in the regular season for me to be confident that he's going to be going in the playoffs, because he took the second half of the season off, and then he took 90% of the playoffs off as well. So that momentum has to carry into the playoffs. And DeBrusk is, I don't want to say responsible for Pettersson's momentum, but I want a grand slam. I'm sorry. I want the version of Jake DeBrusk that his dad believes he is. You know what I'm saying? Because his dad probably thinks he's the best player in the league. So that's the DeBrusk I want.
Yeah. Well, maybe his dad's got to hop on more Canucks games for motivation. There was one clip going around. I'll say this, and we'll get to the last segment. Locked on Canucks, your Canucks every day. There was a clip. So Boston and Edmonton played a Hockey Night in Canada game back in February, and Louis DeBrusk interviewed his son pregame, and he pulled out this golden ticket that apparently DeBrusk gave him as a kid, and it said, "Get a goal or an assist, or you got to do 30 push-ups." And DeBrusk was kind of surprised at the time, but he ended up scoring both a goal and an assist in that game in a 6-5 Bruins win over the Oilers.
There you go.
Maybe Louis DeBrusk has got to be around the rink more for more Canucks games to motivate Jake DeBrusk. Let's wrap up the show on the other side. Let's get to some of the comments and shout out some Cam. I'm going to go with one Cam Neely, former Canuck of the week, in terms of guys who have found new homes, and maybe shout out a couple others. Again, you're listening to Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day.
People, we are back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks and talking more about Jake DeBrusk, okay? The comments going off, man. I can't wait to get to the comments. I can't wait to figure out what Trevor Beggs is about to say about a former Canuck of the week. But before Trevor does that, I got to let you know that we would appreciate it if you hit the like button, man. For real, I want to go on more double dates. Like I said, with Beggsy and his wife and me and my girl. It'd be just a beautiful thing, and more likes help us get there, okay? For real. Imagine, Trevor, you and I at the dinner table and us just bragging about a video that got 56 likes to our girls. Bro, they picking up the bills. For real. Now, I want to read a couple more comments before you get into the segment, Trevor, because this Jake DeBrusk thing is making me passionate. It really is. And look at Alexander Tola, okay? He's saying, no, it doesn't. It's 5.5, okay? I'm assuming he's saying that it doesn't have to be a grand slam. Jake DeBrusk doesn't have to be a grand slam, okay? He's only making 5.5, like Trevor said, 50, 60-point guy, boom, bam. When Trevor said that, I think Alexander commented, exactly. Am I crazy to quote-unquote demand some more out of Jake DeBrusk? Am I crazy? Like, we went from Gensel to DeBrusk. The Canucks said that DeBrusk was at the top of their list. You get what I'm saying? We need to find a winger for Pedersen. We just bought out Ilya Mikheyev. I'm pretty sure Ilya Mikheyev's career high in points is probably like 42, 45. You know what I'm saying?
Less than that.
Less than that. You know, but he's a 20-goal scorer, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want an elite top 6 winger. Is there a chance of that with DeBrusk playing with Pedersen? I'm going to put that at 22%. And I'm hoping that that's the case. Okay, Jake DeBrusk, 34 goals, 43 assists.
Holy smokes. So 77 points, eh?
Yeah.
Damn, I thought you were going to go with 74 points to match his jersey number. But
Nope.
hey, we'll see how it goes. And hey, I'll shout out this comment from Disturbed1 who says, Lindholm needs all-star wingers to be a point-per-game player. DeBrusk has played with players like Charlie Coyle. Now, I think both players, you can make the argument that they play better when they're with elite players. And I think most guys would perform better when they're with elite players. Like DeBrusk last season had 40 points, and he had a broken hand, but he mainly played with Charlie Coyle. Lindholm, a terrible regular season, but played well in the playoffs, short sample size with Joshua and Garland. Again, those guys aren't world beaters. But I think the glass half full in DeBrusk is that you look at the previous season where he largely played with Bergeron and Marchand, and he had 27 goals and 50 points in 64 games.
Woo,
he was on
there
pace
you
for that.
go.
60-ish points, 35 goals. So
Yeah.
again, with elite players, DeBrusk has been better. And again, I'm curious. It'll be interesting to follow these two throughout the next few years. But again, I just think there's definitely more risk on Boston's side with that Lindholm contract.
Yep, there is. And that's because he's older, right? Speaking of getting older, today's episode is brought to you by erectile dysfunction. Me and Trevor Beggs at 31 years old, getting closer and closer to just that. And yeah, Trevor, let's get on to the next program on the show, or the next segment.
Nothing like a little ED. Nothing like a little ED. All right, let's shout out. We haven't brought this up in a while, but bodies are moving around, so let's bring it up. Shout out a Cam Neely, former Canuck of the week.
I don't wanna say goodbye.
All right, so there are some ex-Canucks who found homes over the past few days. Tyler Mott going to Detroit, Nate Schmidt going to Florida, Canuck legend Riley Stillman going to the Carolina Hurricanes. Guys like that moving around. But the guy I want to shout out is none other than the COVID Meister himself, Adam Gaudette. Now, Adam Gaudette, for those that don't know, just tore it up in the AHL this season. I mean, he's been bouncing the NHL and AHL for a couple of years. He only played 2 NHL games this season, and hadn't played in the NHL since 2021-22 before that.
Whoa.
So really played NHL games in the past 2+ years. But this season, down with the Springfield Thunderbirds of the AHL, he led the team with 44 goals and 71 points in 67 games. So the guy has, kind of reached potentially a scoring touch. And now, where he's going? He's signing with the Ottawa Senators, league minimum, and his old friend, Travis Green. So, yeah, my wifey, she's a Senators fan. So I follow the Senators probably a little bit more closely than some teams out there. But curious to see if Gaudette can actually resurrect his NHL career, because we heard it in this market time and time again how, this guy was rushed to the NHL. He needed to develop his defensive game better. I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched a ton of Adam Gaudette in the AHL, but you see those totals and it's like, man, has he figured it out? Because the season before, he had 27 goals in the AHL and 40 or 51 points. But now this is the next level, 44 goals and 71 points. So curious to see if Adam Gaudette can make something of his NHL career after flaming out of Vancouver and getting shipped out of town after infecting the whole team.
Where did he play last year? What was his
He played with the
AHL
St. Louis
team?
Blues. Yeah, St. Louis Blues
okay.
organization. Again, only 2 NHL games.
Wow.
But largely with their AHL affiliate, and had been with their AHL affiliate for the last couple of seasons.
Man, Jim Benning, Travis Green, just rushing players into the NHL, man. Development, man. It's just like, it's a big thing, and those guys really, really effed it up for a lot of guys. That is definitely just the truth. Hey, speaking of development, yesterday we talked about Vincent Desharnais, okay? Vincent Desharnais on a little bonus episode of Locked On Canucks. Go check it out if you haven't already. We got the people going, right? I got the people going. I said the goal is not to win the Stanley Cup. The goal is for Vincent Desharnais to become a better defenseman than Darnell Nurse, so we could just one-up the Edmonton Oilers, okay? I'm so mad at the Oilers. I hate the Oilers. So happy they lost last week. I want to beat them again, okay? Vincent Desharnais has to become a better defenseman than Darnell Nurse, and that is possible even though a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans, man, they keep saying this, $2 million is too much. Way too much. Look at this comment from SGT Battle, an Oilers fan, I think, okay? He said, I wouldn't push Vincent Desharnais higher up the lineup, okay? We love Vinny. I'm not surprised they love Vinny. Seems like a dope dude, like one of the coolest guys in the NHL. But he has his weaknesses, and I truly believe playing beside Kulak helped insulate his weaknesses, okay? I also got a ton of comments on that video saying that, again, this guy struggles to get the puck out. He's just mistake prone. He's one of those guys, right? He's a really tall guy. Doesn't have that coordination down yet, and it's causing chaos. A big reason why the Canucks took it to Game 7 against the Oilers is because, Vincent Desharnais was playing a lot for the Oilers. He's not really that good of a defenseman. I'll be honest. He's not worth $2 million. But as Mother Necker, yes, Mother Necker is saying, and I said the same thing, VD chose the Canucks because of the defensive coaching strategy that the Canucks have and all this jazz and the whole Adam Foote and Rick Tocchet thing. Begsy, I want to leave this episode with this. Like, do you think there's a chance that Project Joshua 2.0, aka Vincent Desharnais, can evolve into a competent number 5 defenseman based on the tutelage from Adam Foote and Rick Tocchet, the 2 guys who gave Vincent Desharnais a phone call after the Canucks gave an offer to his agent to convince VD, not ED, okay? We went from erectile dysfunction to VD, okay? For real. They convinced VD to stay in Vancouver. It's like they must see something here. And I don't see it. This seems like Mission Impossible. But at the same time, it was Mission Impossible to turn Noah Juleson into a competent defenseman. It was Mission Impossible to turn Tyler Myers into, again, a competent defenseman. Can they do the same with VD?
I certainly think they can because, like you said, they've proved us wrong time and time again. I didn't think there was a chance that Noah Juleson was going to turn into a competent NHL defenseman. I didn't think there was a chance that Myers was going to start winning over fans in Vancouver with his defensive play. Like, both those things blew my mind. And I think the Tyler Myers resurgence was one of the craziest stories of the Canucks season. So because of that, I fully believe in this coaching staff to get more out of Vincent Desharnais. What is that ceiling? I'm not quite sure because, like you said, Kyle, you watch this guy in the playoffs, and I thought at even strength, I felt like he was a bit of Tucker Poolman 2.0. The puck died on his stick. I think on the penalty kill, he was good. He was aggressive. He was positionally sound. But I really thought his game at even strength left a lot to be desired. But I'm believing in Tocchet. I'm believing in Foote. I'm believing in Gonchar. I'm believing in staff to get the most out of VD.
Okay, well, look at this comment because, again, we got to play both sides. SGT Battle putting up a battle in the comments. He is saying that VD, with VD, it's possible under different coaches that he can become a lot better. But keep in mind that Paul Coffey was definitely coaching VD in Edmonton. Okay, Paul Coffey, one of the best defensemen of all time. So at the same time, Adam Foote, different type of player. Growing up or playing in the NHL, maybe he can relate more to Vincent Desharnais and help him out. It's going to be fascinating because, again, the Canucks signed him to a 2-year deal worth $2 million. And the Oilers and their fan base is saying, that's too much. That goes to show you how much confidence they have in that guy that they quote unquote love. It's like how do you want to bring up the comparison? Because I don't want to sound like a bully. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs. We'll get back to this tomorrow. It's been a long episode. I got to get to work. Hit the like button, okay? For real. If you've survived throughout this whole episode, DeBrusk versus Lindholm, DeBrusk versus the haters, DeBrusk versus being a 50-point player only. If you enjoyed the episode, hit the like button. Again, it really helps us out a lot. If you're new to the program, we're trying to get to 2,100 subscribers. We're almost there. Hit the subscribe button. Join the Discord, link in the bio. Some good things happening in the Discord. We're going to start talking to you guys and putting you guys on the episode. Blah, blah, blah. Trevor Beggs, sign us out.
All right. Shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube. Wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening, we love each and every one of you. Thanks for making Locked On Canucks what it is. Again, we're in the offseason, baby, but we're still here every damn day. All right. We'll do some roster projections, some more deep dives on free agents and players from this past season, get into all the storylines that matter for your Vancouver Canucks. But for now, we got to get the F out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Cal Bowen, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Dude, it's America Day. We got to sing an American song. America, you are the nation of fast food.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked